Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Stacy. So I talk about true crime and I also talk about anxiety, family dynamics. I'm a married mom of three. My youngest is almost 17. I got two in their 20s, so been parenting for a while. Went to school for social work, never worked in the field, but I do have a background in domestic violence and substance abuse, so that kind of comes in handy when talking about true crime. So I like the look of my new glasses, but I can't see anything out of them. I keep going up and down. It's like a funhouse mirror. So, uh, getting a migraine from this. It's so bizarre because I've had progressive lenses because Medicaid doesn't pay for any other kind of lens in terms of bifocals, so I've always paid for them. But because of where I went and the cost of everything has gone up so much, I can go online and order multiple pairs, like a pair of glasses with upgraded progressive lenses that have anti-glare, scratch resistant, blue light, and then get a pair of prescription sunglasses for less than what it costs to go to any of the stores around here. And they're like, well, if you don't like the glasses, we could do just reading glasses. I'm like, how am I supposed to drive with those? And they're like, well, we can do distance ones. I'm like, how am I supposed to read street signs? I mean, that's why I don't drive at night now. So I'm very frustrated, very frustrated. I can imagine how the people that are, working the Nancy Guthrie case feel right now. They're probably frustrated. I'm sure the family is ready to lose their mind. As I said, I have an 84-year-old mother who I'm taking care of. She had some complications post-knee surgery. Her gallbladder went bad. They took their sweet time getting her to the hospital, so then she got sepsis. I mean, I've been dealing with a nightmare. But I was kind of just coming on to vent about my glasses, and then now that I got that out of the way, I just want to talk about the Nancy Guthrie case. As I said in my last couple of videos, they're keeping everything held back, like the glove they found in the house. Did they find that on the first search? I mean, like, did the CSI team find that? Did they find that did the FBI find it when they searched the house, or did they find that on, like, search number 5? And how did they miss it? See, that's the problem, because they're holding things back, and it's hard to know what exactly is going on. And the FBI is not going to let the sheriff keep flapping, and I don't have a problem with that. It just makes it hard to assess what is going on. So I'm going to edit this into a 3-minute short, but I'm going to keep talking and also post a longer video. So I'm not going to do the please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I always do it at the end of the video. But so that the beginning part will be cut into a short, just about me complaining. And then kind of getting into the Nancy Guthrie case. And my heart breaks for her children. I mean, it just does, because, I mean, if your parent passes away, that's tragic enough. But when they're missing, and then you think they're kidnapped, and then you're getting these ransom letters starting at hour 50, but then the sheriff called the search off at hour 30. Why did he call the search off? Why did he wait so long to call the FBI? I understand that the lab that he's sending the gloves to, which I guess is causing a lot of drama, like online with the media, it is a very good lab. I mean, obviously it's not the lab at Quantico, but it is the lab that has helped in several high-profile cases. So, this is not some out-of-the-way lab. They had to send it, I think, to Florida somewhere. So this is a very reputable lab. I've heard several FBI agents saying, really shouldn't be that big of a deal, and plus with these gloves, and they're going to go around anywhere he was walking on that porch area and touching and trying to pull that camera casing off and touching all around there. There's touch DNA all over that. Unless he somehow managed to get both pair of gloves on, and then once he had the final gloves on, didn't touch his jacket, the backpack, his face, his hair, the steering wheel of the car he was in, or the seat of the car he was in, and there's a certain principal, and I don't remember the name of the principal, but anything, like if I go out of my house, go visit my neighbor, and then come back, I will leave something from me there and bring something from there here. Like my neighbor has a dog, so maybe it might be dog hair, or it might be some fibers from her couch, or, you know, flower petals from her driveway that are different from flower petals from our driveway, or, you know, things like that. So there's always an exchange going on. If he went up and touched something, he's going to leave some kind of footprint that they can, there's going to be some kind of DNA deposited. So hopefully they can get a hit on that, and hopefully they have some success in tracking down these people that are sending the notes to TMZ, because I'm sure they can find Savannah Guthrie's work, you know, email to send to her directly. And it is very rare. Usually kidnappers leave a note at the scene. And so I'm wondering if she didn't make it out alive and that's why they didn't leave the note. I also am wondering if whoever is sending the notes is just sending it to try to exploit the family's tragedy. And that's just sick. And I hope if someone is doing that, I hope they get, you know, I'm thinking it up to like 15 or 20 years for doing that. I mean, you know, submitting a fake ransom note into a real missing person situation, tying up law enforcement time and resources, because they have to run all that down, because when they finally get a suspect, they have to exclude all other tips and suspects, you know. And I don't get the feeling that that guy Carlos was involved. I think if he was, I don't think he would have came out and spoke to the media. You know, I mean, and he was quite friendly and quite calm for having just been detained by the police for 10 hours. And they broke every door in his home. I mean, I don't know. I just, I feel bad for him because his father has some charges that I'm not going to bring up here. They were all over the place. And that kid, even if, let's say he is involved with this, he was labeled as having this kind of charges that nobody wants to go to charges with, you know, like the sex crime charges, like nobody wants to go to prison with that on their jacket. But that kid didn't have it, and it was widely reported. And I think he showed grace to the media. And he just said, you know, hope law enforcement catches the right person so that they clear my name, since they dragged me into it. And you know, they probably should have made sure the media weren't following them. I mean, the media knew that this, you know, if the SWAT vehicles took off, that they were going to be going after a suspect. So the media just followed. And I mean, you need to be, in my opinion, a little more stealthy, because how many people, you know, that guy was a delivery driver of some kind. So Amazon, Uber Eats, doesn't really matter. DoorDash, whatever it is, Instacart, or it doesn't matter who's delivering for. He can't be the only delivery person in the area. And I would hope they learn from example and don't have the SWAT team follow them out to every person that they may go to speak to, or else you're going to have like 500 people in the media going, oh, it's this person, oh, it's this person. And maybe they should wait for an actual arrest. I think, I mean, if you look at, people forget how long it took to catch Kohberger. It was like 48 days or something like that. I mean, it was 6 weeks plus. You know, I mean, it was a while. Murders happened November 13th. And he was caught right after Christmas. So 6 weeks. I mean, and that was still fast considering, you know, what they had to go on, and they had to track the car, and he had changed the license plate and the front plate, and because he didn't have a front plate, and then he switched everything to go along with his birthday, which of course was the day the crimes were committed. So, you know, I don't know. I feel so bad for the family, because I think they just want to know what happened. And the fact that there's been missteps, and then, you know, the police may or may not be sharing information with the sheriff, who may or may not be sharing information with the FBI. I mean, you can't have that going on. They need to come together and work as a team. That is why the Gilgo case went cold. And if it hadn't been for Shannon Gilbert going missing, they wouldn't have even found those bodies. But everything was there, the description of Rex Heuermann, the description of his vehicle, and all the cell tower information, which is what they used to actually nail him. And then they had to go back and find the car. There was people, a decade later, putting in an ungodly amount of work trying to go back through the records and then try to find who owned that car. And thank goodness that Rex Heuermann is like, as Joel from Surviving the Survivor says, he's 6'6" in every direction. And I mean, he was described as a huge ogre. And when they saw him, they're like, well, I could see why anyone, even a big guy who's like 6'1", would just look at Rex and be like, yeah, that's a big ogre. Looks like Shrek. You know what I mean? Without the green skin. But I think there's so much we don't know. There's so much they're holding back. And I know the media needs to put out content, and podcasters and YouTubers put out content. But I think there's a way to do it responsibly. I have my suspicions about the son-in-law, but I'm not going to come out and say, I think it was the son-in-law, and let me tell you why. Now, I would suggest, if you do think that you go check out an episode from The Lifeboat, which was on a couple nights ago. It was 2 nights ago. Today is the February 13th. I believe it was on the evening of the 11th. Tommy's been doing multiple shows a day on this, but he did one where he apologized to Carlos. He's like, man, I'm sorry. Maybe the mainstream media won't say it. He's like, but I will, and I'll do it in a few more videos. He's like, man, there's nothing worse anybody can be called. It's some of the things he was accused of. And anyone being accused of a crime they didn't commit is horrible. Sorry, I'm having a hot flash. Like, I can see I'm starting to turn pink. But, so if you want to catch up on Tommy's feelings on that, I think he gives some great, he lines up some photos, and one of the brother-in-law's bandmates has a scar right on his lip, and it shines in black and white photos, and he lines a black and white photo up with an angle of the intruder that shows a scar glinting off of that camera in the exact same way it did in the black and white photo. And that is compelling. It doesn't have the brother-in-law is not there, but this is a known associate. It's his bandmate. So if you are interested in that, check out The Lifeboat from February 11th. And he did maybe an hour and 40-minute show about it. And he lines up the photos and he tells you his opinion on it. And I think it's a reasonable opinion. Might not be correct, but it's well thought out and reasonable. The question is, are there 2 different crimes going on? Are there separate people coming in and saying, oh, we know where she's at, we have her, give us this money and we'll return her, give us this money and we'll tell you who has her? Well, first of all, if you know who has her and you want money to tell anyone, you are a piece of crap. You are a crappy person and you have no soul. That I will say. If you're trying to blackmail a family who's missing their mother and saying, for $100,000, I'll tell you who has your mother. I don't have your mother, but I know who does, and I'll tell you, but only if you give me a bunch of money. That is the definition of a terrible human being with no soul. So that is my opinion. That is not put out by the police. That is speculation and my personal belief that if you want money to tell the police where to find a kidnapped victim, you are part of the problem with humanity and part of the problem with our culture. I mean, that I can't imagine having information like that and saying, yeah, I'll tell you if you give me a whole lot of money. And I'm broke, and I'd give the money, I'd give that information away to anyone under those circumstances for free. I think you have to be a soulless POS to do that. I think that makes you almost equally as bad as the people that took her or harmed her and disappeared her body. And I don't know, like I said, it could have been a home invasion that went wrong and she never made it out of the house alive. Maybe it was a kidnap for ransom and they couldn't provide proof of life because she had a heart attack when she saw them. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there's so much we don't know. We just know that her pacemaker defibrillator was separated from its base. My father had a pacemaker defibrillator, and his receptor base was on the dresser. But there had been times that his doctor had called him and said, that went off 3 or 4 times last night. Like, we need you to come in so we can take a look at you. And he had his pacemaker defibrillator long enough where he had to have it replaced. And ultimately, when he did pass, I mean, he was in screaming agony as it was shocking him trying to get his heart back on right, and it wouldn't stop. So he kept coding it, and it's supposed to have a cutoff after like 15 shocks. It's not supposed to keep shocking you. And they rushed him from the nursing home to the hospital. This was during COVID, so we weren't able to see him. And a lot of anger still, and that was in 2020, about how not just my father died, and he didn't die from COVID. He died from heart disease and diabetes complications. But he was in a nursing home while they were locked down, while the seniors were locked in with no fresh air, no way to get sunlight, and no way to get natural vitamin D, no way to see their families. And why would they want to hang on and try to live? It's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm far from the only person in Michigan, and I know it was bad in California and several other states. I think Pennsylvania had really repressive lockdowns like we did. There were only 5 states that had them. And I actually was living in Ohio at the time because that was the only way I could work. But I know people are going to make content. But I think when you make content and you do a 2-hour video smearing the family or saying, I don't think it was a kidnapping, and then the next day they release the video from the Nest camera showing, oh, well, shoot, there were guys with, or at least one guy, if you notice in the video that was put out by the FBI, there's the guy with the backpack and the gun, and then there's other footage of him without the backpack and gun. So is that a different guy? And if it's not, did he come up without the gun and the backpack, try to pull that camera down, and then realize, oh, it's not gonna come down as easily, and then go back with the gun and the backpack and then try to yank it down again? I mean, I don't know. But it seems like either there were 2 perpetrators. And I think you need at least 2 people if you're going to try to take her out alive. If you're going to try to carry her out deceased, you may need more than 2. But, I mean, because I'm thinking you need someone at the front or someone at the back door and someone to drive. Because when he's walking up messing with the front light, you do not see headlights that are coming from the driveway. So, oh, sorry, my shoulder. So, I'm not quite sure how to, feel about this case. It is certainly not clear cut. And the Tepe case was, same thing. It was like, well, who could have done this, and where did they go, and who would, attack this couple that, seemed not to have problems with the neighbors, weren't living a criminal lifestyle. They were living a low-risk lifestyle. I think the family had known and, obviously didn't go shoot their mouth off to the media, let the police actually investigate it and be able to get their warrants and go. I mean, because had the family been out flapping their gums, or if someone had been out flapping their gums to the media, then McKee may have ditched that gun. And the fact that he didn't is proof of why sometimes you need to say, we don't know. Even when you're working it in the background very hard and you do have clues, and they put out the video to the public, and they do believe that was McKee from what I've read. But that case made me so sad, I mean, I was so grateful the children weren't harmed, but my heart breaks for them, that their parents, who seemed so loving and kind, were taken from them, leaving them orphaned. And it was especially poignant to me because Spencer Tepe, the dentist that was killed, he worked with Big Brothers of America and had mentored a young man who's now a doctor, I believe. And, it was still, at least emailing, back and forth with him. Because I've seen him come out and speak about how much, Spencer had meant to him. And, I saw him in Monique's wedding and, both their, I saw something with her and her dad, and he's like, I thought he had all of my best qualities. He's like, but I have to give it to Spencer's parents for raising a son with such outstanding qualities. And I believe he said that the morning of their wedding, or maybe during the service, because I know he officiated it. So I'm not sure if he said that before the service or during the service or after, like at the reception, because it was all held at their home. But, the family seemed so loving and kind, and, it's heartbreaking that her first husband not only mistreated her during the marriage, but then stalked her and ultimately killed her a decade after the end of the marriage. I mean, and I'm sure when you hear how she left that Ohio State game, and as someone who lives in Michigan, not far, I went to school at Eastern, so, we were right down from the big house. I've been to many U of M games. I've never been up to see Michigan State play, but I've been plenty of U of M games. One of my mom's best friends had season tickets for decades, literally like 50 years. But now that they're in their late 80s, they don't go. I think that she still has her tickets, but I think her son takes them. I think they pretty much kind of divide them up among the grandchildren and sell any of the unwanted tickets. But, I mean, I remember going and seeing Michigan Notre Dame with, her 50-yard line seats. I mean, they were really good seats. They were. But those are huge games, especially if they're undefeated or if they're in a playoff run. And Ohio State's got an excellent football program. And for her to make plans to have a sitter or have the family watch the kids, go to the game, and then all of a sudden see something that made her so upset, like she needed to leave the game, like now. I think she saw him on her Ring camera. And that had to be horrifying. Like, why is he at my house or our house? And who knows if her children are home or if they were with family. That I don't know. But, the Tepe case, that took 2 weeks or so to, solve. And they had leads in the sense of, because of the type of street they lived on, there were Ring cameras up, and they were able to watch him walk to his car, maybe not walk out of their house, but, they tracked his phone. So, or no, they didn't track his phone. They had another way to track the car because Ohio has license plate readers because of the toll roads. Like, I had a speed pass, so it would just scan my car through. But I know when I haven't had a speed pass, there are certain ones that are not manned. So if there's people there, you either pay cash or you have a speed pass, or you pay with your debit card. Other places, they take a picture of your license plate and they send you a bill. So, but there are license plate readers for that purpose. And so I don't know if he had a speed pass in his car, because I don't think they have toll roads like that in Illinois and Indiana. I think the speed pass is, because we don't have them in Michigan either, but I think the speed pass, I know the one I had, I bought it in Ohio, but it was good for Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, not West Virginia, New York. There were 2 states that didn't take it, and then the rest of them, they all took it. So when I traveled to DC the first time, we didn't have speed pass, and I remember saying to my daughter, okay, next time I come out east, we are getting a speed pass. I'm trying to remember if I bought it on the way. I think I bought it on the way to get our Norwegian Alcon, but then it was going to take 48 hours for it to like come fully online to actually be able to use the speed pass. Um, so I kind of doubt that he had a speed pass, but I'm just, for people that don't live where there are toll roads, that is kind of how it works, and you save 33% by having a speed pass. But I'm wondering if, because he hadn't lived in Ohio for a while, if he just no longer maintained his, you change your car, you can mail them back or if your car's totaled, sometimes you don't get a chance to clean it out. They just take it, especially if you don't have anything in it that you need to go get. So, I don't know. It's been an unbelievably long day. But, there's been a lot of holdback. If you look at the Reiner case, the autopsy reports have been sealed. Obviously, anything relating to HIPAA is going to be sealed, and unless it comes out on the stand, it's probably going to remain sealed, unless he goes for, not guilty by reason of insanity. But that's going to depend on if he had any street drugs in him at the time. I think that's going to shoot that defense out. And the fact that he fled the scene and went to a hotel, I mean, to me, that looks like he fled. And I believe that when that happens, the jury instructions are always going to be that if you can read flight as guilt, as a sign of guilt, which that if you know you did something wrong, then the not the NGI plea goes away, the not guilty by reason of insanity, that goes away. So, there's a lot that we still don't know about the Reiner case, and that happened back in December. And they have Nick in jail. He's sitting in jail somewhere right now. I don't know if he's still in Twin Towers or if they had to move him up to one of the more facilities that are more like a psychiatric prison, where it is not just prison, but everybody in there is criminally insane. And I mean, if you are not criminally insane, you do not want to be in one of those, because it's just like being in prison, except for everyone there is even scarier because they're nuts. So I don't know. But I do, every night pray that Nancy Guthrie is found alive and in a condition where they can get her back on her medication, and, she can go back to living a semi-normal life. I mean, I don't know how normal you'd be after living through something like that. But, I don't have a lot of hope she's alive. But I'm a Christian. They're Christian. I know they're praying, and I'm going to pray along with them that their mother is returned to them alive. And if for some reason she is no longer with us, that they are able to at least find her body and, give the family at least the peace of knowing that she's not out there suffering and scared and alone, as horrible as it would be for them, to not get her back alive. I think at least if they could lay her to rest, then that fear of wondering what's happening to my loved one, where are they? Are they hungry? Are they cold? Are they scared? Things that any parent has ever contemplated about, like, if something were to happen to their child. I've had my youngest son go missing a couple times because he'd hide, not come out. I mean, I called the police in 3 different cities that we lived in looking for him. I mean, I couldn't find him, and we lived right off the freeway, and one time I couldn't find him. I cursory looked through the house, looked in the backyard, and I called 911, and I'm like, I live right off Telegraph at 94. I can't find my 3-year-old. Can you please send someone out to the house? And they couldn't find him either. And then after we searched the house, the yard, and we came back in the house. He crawled out from underneath my son's bed. My oldest son had like a bed that it was like raised up and it had drawers in it. And then there was like a cubby hole underneath that you could, use for storage. And we kept a lot of board games and stuff under there. Well, he had crawled under there, went all the way to the very back. So when the police looked with flashlights, they didn't see him, because he'd been laying down. I think he probably had fallen asleep. But he came out and he was like, kind of wondering, like, where's everyone at? Because we were in the backyard looking for him. And then we came back through the house. There he was. And the police and I just looked at each other like, where the heck did he come from? And I'm looking at him like, I looked in there. And they're like, we looked in there too. So it's like, you feel so stupid, but that fear, it just takes over. It's like, oh my God, where is my kid? And I'm right off the freeway. So like, I'm not giving them any more of a head start than they may already have. Because sometimes, I'd go to the bathroom and his older siblings would go out to play with the neighbors. And I'd come out and he'd be running down the street and I'd be like, have to chase him and, get back here. So, things like that do happen. But that fear of, oh my God, where is my child? And is someone harming him? And do they have the intent to harm him? And like I said, he was only missing for like 15, 20 minutes. And I mean, I called the police when I couldn't find him in 5. Just because of the location I was in. But, and like I said, I've had to do it in 3 different cities. It's just at that point he was a little older and we weren't right near a freeway, so I did take time to look for him. But yeah, one time he was supposed to be with a friend and they took off from a friend's house, didn't come back when they were supposed to. The grandfather didn't drive and called and asked me if they were here. And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, they took off on their bikes. And it's like, well, he wasn't supposed to be taking off on his bike. They were supposed to go like around the block, but they weren't supposed to go farther than that. And oh yeah, it was a huge mess. And then my son was so scared that when the police came to the door and asked him who he was, because they went through his friend's house and he was there, but he was scared of the police because of an incident we had that I'm not going to talk about, which was in the second city that I had to call the police looking for him. And one of the police officers was very aggressive and mean and screamed at all of my kids, which you're not their parent. I mean, that man should never have been a cop. He was just a nasty piece of work. But I mean, my kids to this day, and 2 of them are adults, and my youngest is going to be 17, and they're still uncomfortable around the police because of that experience they had with that officer yelling at them. And there were 3 other officers with him that did not say anything to him about it. And when I yelled, don't you scream at my children, he's like, I'll arrest you. I was like, for what? Telling you not to scream at my children? I'm sure you have a body camera. I don't think any juror would like how you just spoke to my children. And your 3 buddies, they all got body cameras on too. And I didn't say anything. I didn't tell you to F off. I didn't call you a pig. I didn't say that, but I said I didn't say anything rude to you. I didn't tell you to F off. I didn't swear in any way. I just said, don't scream at my children. They're little and they're scared because their brother was missing. And, I mean, they're children. They get scared. I mean, it is what it is. And so, but that time he wouldn't identify himself. They're like, is your name so-and-so? He's like, no. They're like, what's your name? And I think he said Joe, and he probably got that because that's his brother's middle name. But, they came back here, and they're like, we think we found him. Do you have a recent photo of him? I was like, yeah, hold on. And I got his, school photo for that year, and they're like, we got him. They're like, they're back at his friend's house, but he's denying who he is. They're like, let us radio that is him, and we'll bring him back. And, I asked him, why did you tell the police that you weren't you? And he's like, because I didn't want to get screamed at. And this was when he was like 7, maybe 8. But I mean, that's how bad they were traumatized, from one officer who was called by me to help find him, when we were in, like I said, 7 in 3 different cities. It was the middle city, and not the one we live in now. And he told me when we got him home, he was so scared because he didn't want to get screamed at, because when he thinks of the police, he thinks of, and we call the guy Scarface because he had a big scar down his face. So we're not referring to him in the Al Pacino way. It's just we don't know the officer's name, but he had this huge scar down his face. And he's like, well, because of how that Scarface police officer screamed at me, he's like, I didn't want to tell the police who I was. And I was like, honey, that one guy should not be a cop. I'm like, and the other officers, did they scream at you? And I said that to him. He's like, you want it? I said, and I explained why. I said, because he was screamed at when he was like, 4 by a police officer. I said very inappropriately. I said, and he is very scared. I said, so he's probably not, if you want me to go pick him up. And they're like, no, we'll go get him. But, they said he is afraid of police, so just be very kid-friendly. And I don't think that they were in any way not kid-friendly. But I think, obviously they don't want to radio, hey, he had a run-in with a real jerk of a cop a couple cities over, and, he's not going to tell you who he is. But that's how that affects kids. And did that officer screaming at my kid that day even think about it? And what right did he have to scream at him? He didn't. He had no right to do that. So, I don't know. I hope that some of the missteps, like not like calling off the search at 30 hours, waiting too long to call the FBI, and not getting the Cessna up flying because Sheriff Nanos had an argument with the pilot. Like, well, if you can't fly the plane and go looking for her, maybe you shouldn't argue with the pilot and pull him off out of the plane and say, no, you got to go drive around in the car because I'm going to punish you. You punish the family and you compromise the investigation potentially. Good call, Sheriff. And I know there's issues because he's not well liked. I know that a lot of the detectives, because he had been elected, lost an election, and now he's back. And I guess a lot of people left when he was coming back because they campaigned for the other guy. And they're like, yeah, we're going to get moved apartments to places we don't want to be, and we'll just retire. We don't need it. So I hope that case gets solved. And, let's keep in mind that until we really let's not throw stones at the family until we really have some kind of solid proof. I know there's a lot of speculation out there, but, that's why I've been all over my content going, I'll tell you when I'm speculating versus what I'm, hearing from reputable sources in the media. The problem is they're keeping this very close to the vest, and they need to right now. And like I said, I don't have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is how it's being covered by both the mainstream media with the 24-hour news cycle and by a lot of the content creators. Not naming anyone specifically because some have done an amazing job. Most of the ones I watched have done an amazing job, but they have pointed out people that are just downright foolish acting. And it's like, come on, man, especially if you have a lot of subscribers. Like if you've got 500,000 subscribers or more, you're influencing a lot of people, and you kind of need to use your morals. And if you're just, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm spitballing, I'm going to throw some ideas out there. Like I said, I'm not sure if there's multiple crimes going on. Like they went in to just break into the house, and it was a B&E gone wrong, and they killed her, and now someone else is trying to cash in on it, so that would be 2 separate crimes. And then they got the guy from California that sent the ransom note. I just hope that the family gets some kind of resolution, and soon. I pray that she is found. It's just the longer this goes on, and without her having her medication, unless they had a way to get her medication, I don't know how long she's got realistically. But like I said, I hold out hope for the family. But anyway, so let's do the whole YouTube thing. Thank you for spending some time with me. I know this is a really long one. I'm going to cut a couple out into shorts, I think. And then, but thank you for spending time with me. And please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. My shorter videos are a lot less of me just kind of meandering all over the place. But I'm touching on a couple different cases along with rolling in with what's going on with my life and my experiences with some of my experiences with law enforcement. And that's just dealing with one of my children. Never had to deal with police with the other ones, but I've been wrongfully accused. Took that to trial twice, so you can go back in my content and I've talked plenty about it. But thank you for spending some time with me. Now I got to put the funhouse glasses on because I'm trying to get used to them, but I can't. I don't know how to look at myself and I'm with where to, like when I look up, it's too close. And when I look through the bottom part of it, it's like when I was sitting there trying to read, I was like, okay, well, I can see him if I look like this. She's like, yeah, just look through the bottom part of the lens. I'm like, yeah, this is not a natural neck position that anyone can read from. Like, this is me with my head up. This is where I have to look to read out of them. So it's like, and right now I'm looking at myself like a funhouse mirror. Ooh. So I'm going to go to bed. I'm so tired and I'm now getting a pounding headache. But I will see you guys in the next one. Please send this out if you know anyone. Like I said, I cover content on family dynamics, anxiety, true crime. And occasionally, like if there's something major breaking in the news, I might talk about it. I don't like to cover politics, but if there is like I know a governor's daughter or a gubernatorial candidate's daughter was just murdered. I haven't had time to really look into that case. Um, and like I said, I try to stay away from politics, but if that becomes a major case, then I will cover it, and then I just ask, please, let's not do the hatred, in the comments, but please leave me a comment. I do respond to all the comments I get, and I'm always very excited to get them because, I don't have a lot of subscribers and I don't have a lot of interaction with the people that do subscribe. I have a couple people that comment back and forth, but because I was offline when my mother was hospitalized for 6 weeks, I think I put up maybe 4 videos. I know, that they're not like right up in my comment section right now. So please leave me a comment and I will see you guys around. Take care. And like I said, say a prayer for that family if you believe in praying. And if you're not someone that believes in prayer, send some positive thoughts their way. And take care.